WWE dropped a major announcement today, plus there's some very big rumors surrounding SummerSlam, but we got to kick today's video off with some very big AEW news. What has happened to Jade Cargill? And this is a very interesting question because Jade Cargill dropped the TBS championship, and at this point, we haven't seen her on TV. And I'm not saying this to be critical of AEW, because I think this could actually be a good thing, but it is shocking that we're not seeing references to Jade. We're not seeing any acknowledgement of Jade. We're not seeing anything about Jade. And she just had like a 500 plus championship reign in the company, which I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the longest reign in the company history. Granted, the company hasn't been around for that long, but she's been champion for a very, very long time. And then social media got people talking because of her tweets, making it kind of sound like she didn't want to really be involved with wrestling. And then what's really interesting is Dave Meltzer came out recently on the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and he said that there hasn't really been much talk about Jade backstage or anything like that. However, there is no timeline for her return. Now, at the end of the day, I think Jade Cargill is a hell of a talent. I really do. If you guys watch this channel, you know I'm a fan of Jade Cargill. And I could kind of understand why you wouldn't want her to be on TV, right? Because she just held the championship for the longest reign. Like, she obviously was a big, she was the forefront of the show, right, as a champion. But also at the same time too, to not see any acknowledgement is interesting. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like, you know, Chris Statlander won the championship. We see a little bit of her on TV every so often, but I don't really see them talking about what Jade's reign actually meant. And I thought maybe it could be a good idea for AEW to air some vignettes about Jade Cargill coming back to the top. Maybe Jade wanting to get revenge on her championship. I feel like this is something that's kind of gotten away from wrestling, but when somebody loses their championship belt, they should want to get it back, right? Especially in Jade's situation. Jade lost to Chris Statlander in a impromptu match. I feel like there should be a reason for her to want it back, right? But at the end of the day, again, it might not even be a bad thing. And the reason why I don't think it might be a bad thing is because right now, this is AEW's way of, if they so choose, obviously I can't sit here and speculate on what she's doing with her off time, but maybe this could be somewhat of a time for Jade Cargill to be putting in work in ring, right? Trying to get better, perform better. Maybe this is a situation of, hey, she's been on TV so much, she was the champion, she needs a break. That can make a lot of sense too. It could also be another factor that I think is really important to discuss, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons why I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's the fact that now Chris Statlander gets the shine as TBS champion, and when people least expect it, maybe that's when they bring Jade Cargill back in. Again, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing, and the fact is Jade Cargill isn't on TV, and there is no timeline for her to return. Obviously, there could be a million things happening, and I don't like to speculate on any of those things if it's more on like the personal level, but it's an interesting choice. And I do think with Jade Cargill, it could be a situation where the TBS championship has elevated her to the next level. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. We don't know what they do. Maybe Tony Storm, Jamie Hayter, Jade Cargill, Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa. You know, you have quite a few names that could be at the top of the list for the women's division. You have to wonder if maybe Jade Cargill just instantly goes in that slot. But right now, she's been pulled from TV, and there's been no talks of a return. Guys, WWE has SummerSlam coming to Detroit next month, and oh my goodness, I'm super excited for this. However, there's something very interesting that I want to talk about. I read this stuff with Meltzer talking about the current match listing for SummerSlam, and essentially what's kind of happening here is that WWE is sticking to a new strategy, and we've talked about the strategy a couple times on the channel before. But essentially, WWE is not going to put all of the big matches on a pay-per-view card, because what they're going to do is put the matches on SmackDown before or Raw after the pay-per-view. So Meltzer was kind of talking about this. You know, he was saying, look, SummerSlam doesn't include, Seth Rollins. It doesn't include Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, Austin Theory, Edge. There was like a couple other names, I believe. And basically, I do think Meltzer made a really good point too. Like, Triple H has shortened the pay-per-views, their quality stories on the card, things like that. Also, we're a month away. Stories are progressing, right? So I'm sure we'll get a couple match announcements. But this idea that WWE has several people not listed internally for SummerSlam is an interesting choice. Now, as somebody, right, and this is the crazy thing, selfishly, I'll be at SummerSlam. So obviously I want to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Obviously I want to see Edge. Obviously I want to see the World Heavyweight Championship on the line, which again, I think we'll get some of these announcements, right? But this idea that WWE is going to make these pay-per-views with much more meaningful matches, I think it's a great strategy. The problem is, if they don't announce a SmackDown the day before SummerSlam in Detroit, if they don't do that, then obviously I'm going to be missing out on some top matches, because it's a good strategy and the strategy will work. It makes TV better, right? We saw this with Backlash. We saw this with Elimination Chamber. We've seen this recently. But as a fan who's going to be in attendance for the stadium show, it would be really nice to be able to go to the arena the day prior and watch some of these matches as well. I think this is a good strategy. I could see how it benefits television. I could see the cons to this, though, because as I just said, I'm going to be in attendance at SummerSlam. There might be certain people I want to watch. They might not be there. And that to me is a little bit problematic. WWE SummerSlam should be a big show, and it should be a great show. And hopefully WWE realizes that the matches they put on that show will ultimately deem whether or not the show is successful. And those matches are based on the stories that they're producing. And right now they have quite a few good stories. The product is hot, right? WWE and AEW are incredibly hot right now. They got to keep up the momentum. That's what gets people bought into the pay-per-views. This is why Forbidden Door did great with pay-per-view sales. This is the reason why WWE's viewership is doing very well, especially on Peacock. Just keep that in mind. We'll see how well this strategy actually works and whether or not they actually do it long-term as well. And that leads us to our final topic. WWE has announced Survivor Series, but there's a little something happening here that kind of made me confused. WWE issued a PR statement. Survivor Series is headed to the Allstate Arena in Chicago on November 25th. The tickets are on sale July 21st. And additionally, Friday Night SmackDown will also happen from Chicago Friday, November 24th. WWE is not doing War Games. At least according to this post, it's simply Survivor Series. Now, last year, Survivor Series was dubbed as Survivor Series War Games. I don't know how I feel about that, because I love War Games. And I see all the factions that are happening. I see the Bloodline storyline stuff that is happening. We're seeing the fall of Judgment Day. We got some pretty good stuff happening with the women's divisions. Is WWE going back to the old way of doing things? Raw versus SmackDown. Actually, hold on. What about NXT? Is WWE going to be doing NXT this year? Because we know Nick Khan wants the third brand. We know that he wants the third brand involved. Is there a possibility this year we can get Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus Carmelo Hayes if all three of those men are world champions by November 25th? That would be sick. Gunther versus Theory versus Wesley, the mid-card champions. What about the women, right? They haven't specified. But this is a major announcement because of the fact that they haven't specified. And it sounds like WWE could be cooking up something very, very interesting here. And it could be very, very good for NXT. But ultimately, what happens to War Games? And then it got me thinking, maybe WWE is truly done with the gimmick pay-per-views, right? The gimmick match pay-per-views. And then moving forward, they will use the match as a specialty. Now, if I was WWE and I was doing that, give me War Games on television. AEW does it with Blood and Guts. I think it's a good thing. They should do it on television. They should do it on SmackDown. They should do it on Raw. And it would make a lot of sense. And it would be very good for the product. Keep in mind, Chicago's a big market. AEW kills it out there. WWE is heading out there. It's going to be very interesting to see how tickets move for this. Let me know what you guys think of the video. I'll see you guys next time.